Report Fan Saturday Daily DDT. My man, how you doing?
Doing well, Mr. Randy Cruz. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, man. You can follow Graham on Twitter at Russell Rants. Follow myself, Randy J. Cruz, RENDY, the letter JCRUZ. Find the podcast on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, also on Amazon Music. Go to youtube.com/Cruise Control Podcast. Go ahead, download, rate, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Show some love and support for your boys on the program. If you are watching live on X, YouTube, we really appreciate it. Any questions, comments, feedback you have, hit us up in the chat. I got a very special guest on. He was just on, but he disappeared in thin air. Our guy Marc Raimondi, the author of the upcoming book that he has about the nWo. We got the John Cena heel turn to talk about. Is it better than Hulk Hogan's heel turn back in 1996? We got Punk and Rollins in a steel cage on Raw on Monday night. We got WrestleMania, so a lot to get into. So before Mark chimes in, Graham, how you feel, man? You doing good?
I'm doing good. I'm still in a state of shock coming off this weekend, and obviously it's very timely that what we're going to be talking about here today, but I'm doing well.
Shock, like, I mean, you saw it live, right? The
Yeah,
Cena Hilton. Okay.
Yes.
So before Mark gets on, what was your initial reaction to it? And now, almost a week later, how do you feel about this the John Cena heel turn?
It was more of a case of I couldn't believe they actually did that. And I even, we said, listen, we literally did a podcast last week, Randy, and I think you clipped it as well beforehand, and you can reshare it after the fact. Because I said I just did not think it would make sense. We still don't know if it's going to make sense. We don't know. Like, we haven't heard from Cena yet. The event itself obviously was shocking, and it was a monumental thing. I will not deny that. My initial instant, organic reaction was, wow,
Yeah.
I'm surprised they actually did that. It does make the Cody match more interesting. We'll see where they go with it. I still need the logic to be backed up. Why would he turn heel now? He's been in character like a man of the fans for the last 20 years. So, like, why? It's not like a Hogan thing, which we'll get into, but, people were not booing him. People were all cheering him now. So it's kind of weird. But beyond that, I thought it was definitely interesting. It's all everyone's been talking about for the last, 5 days. So it does make me more excited for the road to WrestleMania, to say the least.
And bro, when you say everybody, is ESPN, is First Take. I see baseball Twitter accounts talking about it. Late night shows. I'm like, oh damn, this is really like going all over the place, really mainstream. Because one, it is shocking that Cena, the super duper good guy for over 20 years, has now in his final world tour, making the rounds. I think he probably said, listen, let me just tap my foot in this mix before it's all said and done. Again, he says that I'm done after December. Him being a heel turn, does that extend the time? We don't know. But I feel like at some point in time, John was like, listen, man, I want to do this. I have to do this. Every big time star, male or female, has been a good guy and a heel. So he was the only person. And I think when you want to do the comparisons to Hogan, we'll get to that later. But it's like, aside from Hogan, this was probably the biggest turn as far as being a good guy for so long. And then now you do it in such a timely fashion. And then you align yourself with the biggest actor in the world and the biggest star in the world and the biggest hip hop star, or one of the biggest hip hop stars in the world, Travis Scott, on the same night. So it was like, holy shit, like that was very, very well done.
Yeah, the execution was great. Regardless of my thoughts on it, as far as whether this will work out long term, could they turn him back babyface by Mania? A lot of unanswered questions, which was obviously the intention. I thought the execution of the angle was actually excellent, and the whole facial expression thing, Rock kind of orchestrating it. The F-bomb from Cody, can't forget about that. That was honestly more shocking than the turn itself, to be perfectly honest with you. The whole thing was excellent. So it made for a must-see ending. Everyone talking about it. They're capitalizing on the buzz as they should. But apparently, we have to wait another 2 weeks to see Cena, unfortunately. But when we get that follow-up...
officially see him.
I know, yeah, literally, seriously. Hopefully, it gets the new theme. They go all out with it, new attire. We'll see if they actually go that route or not. But I am intrigued, to say the least.
Okay, I'm going to bring on Marc Raimondi in like 2 seconds. Mark, my man.
Himself.
Third man is here. The third man is here.
I had to make an entrance, right? I couldn't just start at the top. I mean, I had to come in, drop a leg drop, do the pose.
That's right. How you doing, man? Welcome back.
I'm good. Pardon my computer troubles. For some reason, my laptop hates StreamYard. I've done several StreamYard podcasts, and it always like crashes at the beginning. usually I'm able to come back on and it we're good the rest of the way. But for some reason, right at the launch, it's like, nah, we don't like this. So
I hear that. If you are just joining us live on X and YouTube, thank you. We appreciate it. Any questions, comments, feedback you have, hit us up in the chat. If not, me, Mark, and Graham, we're going to talk for the next foreseeable half hour plus. Marc Raimondi, you are in the middle. New Atlanta Falcons beat writer. Used to be at ESPN, and you know,
still at ESPN.
Are you still there?
Oh
shit,
bro!
Where
did I go?
I'm thinking I don't know, bro.
Did he get fired? You just informed him, Randy?
My bad. A future endeavor, right? Future endeavor. Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta Falcons, ESPN. Can I say used to be at MMA wrestling? Is that good? Used to be.
I used to cover combat sports at ESPN. Now I cover the NFL. I cover the Atlanta Falcons. Yeah, that's it.
Before we get into
6 years strong with ESPN, Randy. I'm not going anywhere.
That's right. You know what? The contract extension, right?
I did get a contract extension last year. Yeah, when I made the change over to the NFL.
Nice, congrats. Before we get into the wrestling aspect, the difference of covering wrestling, MMA to the NFL. You know, you've been there for a couple of months. The season is over, but what is your instant reaction and your thoughts about covering the Atlanta Falcons and the NFL now?
I mean, it could not be any more different. It could not be any more different because when it comes to MMA, because I mostly covered the UFC, right? You know, a little bit of wrestling, a little bit of boxing. It behooves the talent, the wrestlers, the fighters to talk a lot. You know, to promote themselves, to promote the fight, to promote the pay-per-view, so on and so forth. You know, there's a lot of crap talking in those. That's part of the ecosystem, right, of combat sports is the crap talking. That does not exist so much. It does to a degree in the NFL, but for the most part, there is no incentive for players to talk any crap, rightfully so, in the NFL, and nor do they need to promote themselves because they're already making an incredible amount of money, and so are the teams. And you don't need to promote Sunday NFL. You know, it's like everyone's watching anyway. You know, there's no need to promote it. You know, Monday Night Football, Sunday, Thursday, the whole deal. I mean, there's no reason to pump that up and talk crap. So I've had those conversations with a number of the Falcons players, and you know, they find it interesting, you know, how the different worlds work. But as you know, Randy, I'm no stranger to covering more I guess traditional sports, right? You know, that's how we know it, through basketball, through my coverage of basketball back in New York, and now I'm just kind of back kind of in civilization a little bit, like normal civilization.
Listen, before we went on air, we talked about your St. John's are doing very, very well, shocking the world, top 10 in the country. We'll see what they do with the Big East tournament and March Madness, but it's a very different field now with Pitino and St. John's having top 6, top 7 team in the country right now.
Yeah, you kidding me? Top 10 in St. John's has not happened in my lifetime. No, I mean, it probably has happened in my lifetime, but you know, winning the Big East outright, you know, beating UConn. I mean, that is just so sweet for me. It's just beating UConn twice in one season. First time in 45 years. That is longer than my lifetime. I'm not quite 45. It's just been a magical season. But again, as a St. John's fan, I'm still very reluctant going into the postseason now, right? I'm still very like, we know this is not like, you know, Pitino is different than the past guys. The players are different. This is a different team, but still there is that, like, you know, feeling in the pit of your stomach, like things could go awry very quickly. Because, you know, St. John's basketball. I mean, I got there, and as a sophomore, there was like a sex scandal. They expelled like half the team. There was multiple walk-ons starting. That was my like first experience as a student at St. John's and covering the team. I'm a lifelong St. John's fan because I grew up like, you know, just in the shadow of Utopia and Union Turnpike in Queens. But yeah, I mean, it's been a magical ride so far. So hopefully they can keep it going as long as possible. At least at least give me a Sweet 16.
At least, right? At least. Before I get Graham involved, but now we can add author to your resume. So, I mean, listen, soon to be author, like I guess I'll start here. Like, what got you into writing? What was the genesis of you wanting to write a book in general, and then why did you feel like your first ever book, your debut book, would be on pro wrestling with a topic of the nWo and their impact on pro wrestling?
Well, short answer to your first question is I didn't really have any designs on writing a book. It was not something that I was thinking about at the time. It's something that I thought, was kind of would be a career goal down the road, but I didn't foresee it happening while I was, a beat writer for the UFC for ESPN or, for the Atlanta Falcons for ESPN. That was never, because it's a beat writer job is a busy job. I'm on the road a lot, especially when I was covering MMA. I was on the road constantly. You guys know that. But this all happened in May 2020.
Uh-oh. We did mention streamer. I don't like him. Come on, Mark.
See if it comes back.
Oh, shit. Damn.
Did we lose him or is he just frozen?
I think he just frozen.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
He might come back in a second.
All right. Sorry. Boom. No, that was me. So I want to make sure he might.
Is he still here, but he's frozen, or is he?
He's
gone?
Frozen, man. Like the movie. Oh man. Okay. So before we got to pivot.
The Rock pivot.
Were you shocked that Mark was writing a book about the nWo?
I was. When he announced that, I was really intrigued. First of all, I'll read anything that Mark writes. But second of all, the fact that it's on the nWo is awesome. I'm sure he'll mention, and I've read his post about it on Twitter and stuff about kind of his thoughts behind like how the process came to be and whatever. But like the timing of it is perfect. The book comes out like in just a few short months, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Do we have an official release date?
I thought it was June, July, something like that.
Okay. Well, we're right around the 30-year anniversary of the nWo. Obviously, it's next July.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was. He'll mention it, obviously. I don't know if that was the idea behind it to kind of coincide with the anniversary. Not exactly. It's a year off.
Yeah.
But, I'm looking forward to checking that out.
And plus the fact that nWo is now being in a conversation now. With the Cena heel turn now, it's like being brought back to life, and with the Hogan stuff. And then before he comes back on, I me watching it live, Chamber, I was like, yeah, Cena. I didn't think like, yeah, why is Cena still in the ring? Plus they moved the segment from the middle to the end.
They did.
I kept hearing it's going to be in the middle, then Chamber was going to be the main event, and then obviously I thought Punk was going to win, and then you set up him and the Seth, and I think we'll probably get Roman involved on Monday at the Garden. But I think most had Cena winning. And then just seeing him getting involved with The Rock, and like now, how does it all make sense? Are we gonna have a new theme song? Are we gonna have new attire, new attitude? So that's the next element of the heel turn. But I'm not in shock because I was never like, oh, it'll never happen. I felt like it.
You did feel like it would happen at some point.
Yeah, I mean,
really.
If you go back to the clip that I put out, I kept saying the possibility. I'm not saying it's happening for sure, 1,000%. I'm saying
no. I agree. I know.
I felt it could happen.
Well,
I say at Chamber, no.
Well, I also yes. Okay. If that's your mindset, then yes. I knew there was obviously anything is possible, and except friggin' Macho Man coming back from the dead. Aside from that, anything. Honestly, at this point, especially now that it has happened, anything is possible.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, for someone. All of us, really, especially the both of us that have talked about this for so long, like just covering the product and whatnot. I gave up. I jumped off that John Cena turning heel train like 15 years ago. I mean, I just figured that there were so many opportunities, honestly, that were better than this to turn him heel. Why would they do it now? And I still need a good answer as to why now. Like, we still need to see how this plays out. The actual turn was amazing.
Yeah.
We'll see how it plays out. But I genuinely did not think it would happen because, like, what do they gain the fact that fans are now interested in the Cody match at Mania, which otherwise they may not have been as much as they are currently. But what else is gained? Because Cena was already super popular. Like, it's not like he's being put over or anything like that. So I don't know. Time will tell.
All right, here we go. Hey, welcome back, Mark. Stream up, man.
I was on a roll.
He was on a roll.
I don't know.
But
maybe I should be using my phone. I'm using my laptop. Maybe it's just not. They say to use the StreamYard guest app on the phone, and that's like the better way to do it.
Okay.
I don't know. Where was I?
So you're on the phone now or laptop?
No, I'm still on my laptop.
Okay. I don't mind starting over if you want to, because
Well, you mentioned, I know the last thing you had mentioned was 2021.
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
Yeah. That was the last
Yeah. I still saw you guys and I heard you and I was still going. And then you're like, oh, he's gone. I'm like, no, I'm here.
That's funny.
I'm still here.
Go ahead, Mark.
So anyway, so I'm in. It's May 2020.
Oh shit!
Is that the secret word 2021 where it gets cut off?
Like 2021. Yo,
they don't want to. They don't want him to finish his.
They said don't talk about me, bro. Mark, just know you froze again. If you can hear us, you froze again. This is wonderful because when Mark is on Area Hawani, everything is clear. I'm like, damn. All right, so now we're gonna have Mark talk about the book, talk about this and that. Now he's glitching like the Matrix. Oh boy. Okay. Until Mark comes back. Is it fair to have again, it's been only a week.
Yeah.
And you talk about a heel turn that happened 29 years ago with Hulk Hogan and the nWo. Is it fair to have the instant comparisons of that heel turn to say, is it better? Is it, again, that was pre-social media. The internet was around. But it wasn't the social apps we have and the instant reaction. Hotline still existed, AOL, all that kind of stuff. And I think the crowd makes it different for me because when Hogan does it, they're throwing trash and garbage in the ring. When Cena does it, it's like everybody's cheering. It's like, oh, it's about time. Thank God. It wasn't that kind of backlash.
What was the Hogan? People were probably cheering at the Hogan one, right? I mean, they weren't all booing because they were already sick of him at that point anyway. It's not they turned like
it might have been half or more on. Oh my God, I can't be throwing the garbage in. Anyway, hold up, Mark. There we go, Mark.
All right, I'm on my phone. I'm on my phone now. It's a little bit of a different shot. Excuse me. It's like an upward. It's not what I had prepared, but we're gonna try to roll with it anyway. Okay, we're gonna try to roll with the punches because man, StreamYard is freaking. Can I curse on here?
Sure.
No, I'm not gonna curse.
I mean, don't do no Cody Rhodes curse, but we good.
Hey, StreamYard, go yourself. Oh my God, this is brutal. What is going on with StreamYard?
Do you have a vertical or horizontal?
I have a vertical.
Can you try horizontal for me?
Yeah, I can try horizontal.
In case I clip some things out.
Now I'm upside down for Christ's sake.
The 228 people who have chimed in. This is just normal stuff me, Graham, and Mark go through. Mark's the man. We're gonna get right to it.
5 years for this.
You waited 5 years.
5 years for this crap. All right, how about this?
Yeah,
this is not so bad.
This is perfect. Come on, now
a little closer.
We're ready.
I'm gonna see if I can get a little closer to y'all.
There we go.
Like JR said, man, this is live television.
Oh my goodness, this is crazy! Wow. I apologize, guys. This is very unprofessional for me.
No worries.
So good. The floor is yours. The floor is yours.
The floor is yours. I mean, you should have heard what I was saying a few minutes ago. You should have heard the words that were coming out of my mouth. Remind you that I'm an Italian American from Queens.
Facts.
Right.
Facts.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So. Here we go again.
You said 2021. 2021.
May 2021.
We got through it.
We good?
I didn't freeze. All right. I think we're good.
Okay. So I'm in a hotel room in Houston, Texas, and I'm covering UFC, and I get an email to my ESPN email address, and it's a person named Yadan Israel, and the email says that this person is an editor for Simon & Schuster, and basically they're asking me if I want to write a book by the nWo. And my first inclination, my first thought when I got this email was, well, this is BS. This is not real. This is complete, this is like a spam email. It's like a phishing scheme. I'm going to probably get hacked if I click on any links or anything. So then I Google this person's name, and it turns out, okay, this person's name is
real.
It's true. It's a real person who works at Simon & Schuster. He's an editor there. So I wrote back, and what am I going to say? Of course, of course I'm interested in writing a book about the nWo. What am I crazy? It didn't feel like the right time, if I'm being honest, because I was just so busy with covering the UFC mainly. But we had a conversation that day, like literally like a half hour later after the email was sent. We spoke on the phone, and his vision for what an NWO book could be was very much in line with mine. And what I mean by that is, like, he was not interested in just kind of like a history of the NWO and, you know, the blow by blow, the play by play. He wanted something that was going to kind of show and explain how the NWO and pro wrestling more generally has helped shape, you know, the country and the culture and society. And the NWO was a tremendous kind of jumping off point for that hypothesis, because of it was the catalyst of that major boom period in the 90s. So, you know, I got off the phone with him that day and I was like, man, this is insane, because, you know, he and I, he's from Brooklyn, by the way. Shout out Yadon. He's from Bed-Stuy.
Nice.
So, you know, Brooklyn and Queens guy get together, and we've cooked up this this book, and I think it's gonna be something that is will be great for wrestling fans, but even greater maybe for people who don't know or don't understand wrestling, to pick up and kind of just learn about why guys like us have grown up on it, you know, why we continue to consume it, and what it has done for culture and for society. And it's been a long process that's still ongoing, by the way. Like, I still owe Simon Schuster another another edit coming up in a few days. So it's not quite done yet, but we're getting really close now. It comes out June 24th. But yeah, it was just one of those things where it was not something that I considered doing. And the reason why it happened, the reason why they reached out to me, why he reached out to me particularly, is because I wrote about the NWO going into the WWE Hall of Fame for ESPN. And, you know, when I wrote that story and I interviewed, you know, WWE got me on the phone with Hulk Hogan and Kevin Nash for that story. And I completely, like, overwrote this story. You know, it could have been a very simple 500 word, 600 word, you know, NWO is getting nothing to the Hall of Fame. And I think I probably wrote 2,000 words. And I was just kind of like, I just kind of went off, you know, because it meant something to me. And that group and that time period was so influential for my life, and I think for a lot of other people, that I completely overwrote it. And Yadon from Simon just saw that, because he wanted a book about the NWO. He saw that article and he was like, okay, this guy is like, you know, he didn't have to do all that, right? He did not have to do all that about the NWO, but he did. And I think that's the guy, you know, to write this book. And now here we are. It's been almost 4 years since then, right?
Wow.
May 2021. And now things are getting man, it's been a hell of a process. But writing a book is no joke, I'll tell you that. It's a grind. It's a lot of work, especially when you have a full-time job.
Yeah.
But it's getting close, and I'm going from kind of being exhausted to being excited now. And I just can't wait for people to share this with people, because, again, it's like, I know that wrestling fans are going to read it, right? But I also want to try to get through to people, you know, who their first thought of wrestling is, you know, it's fake, right? Like, that's kind of the people that I'm trying to at least reach out to show them that this is, like, you know, because the stigma that wrestling still has is incredible to me. It's like, it doesn't make sense to me, because the perception of what wrestling is to some people and what wrestling actually is could not be further apart. If you guys know what I'm saying, it's like, if you bring people and show them the wrestling that we know and why we love it, it helps people understand a little bit more. Some people are just going to be closed off, but I'm hoping that this book kind of makes people understand a little bit more about why wrestling has influenced America the way it has, and you can't even deny that it has. You can't. Donald Trump is the president of the United States. He's in the WWE Hall of Fame. I mean, you know, 2 political campaigns where, you know, nonstop promos in front of crowds that were holding signs, that were wearing the red hats, like the NWO shirt, the Austin 316 shirt. I mean, you can't tell me that's not professional wrestling. And if you understand professional wrestling, you understand a little bit more about what is going on in every aspect. I mean, a rap beef is pro wrestling.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, if you and this is, it's culture. You know, this is culture. Pro wrestling is a huge part of American culture that has been undervalued by a lot of people because of that. Like, oh, it's just fake fighting. It's like, man, if you're just feeling that way, if you're coming into it thinking that way, you could not be any off what it actually is.
I promise, Graham, you going next. Give me 10 seconds.
No, don't worry.
I mean, I get the part. Is it's fake, right? And then I'm like, well, nobody tells, hey, Denzel, Gladiator's fake, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You put on, you're an actor. Everybody's an actor, actress. You put on, it's all entertainment, but it's still like wrestling can still blur the lines of like, is it real? Damn, did that really happen? Did it really have beef? Anyway, I did want to point out a question: that is it because, like, when they say nWo, does that add extra? Does it hit harder, like, to the childhood? I grew up watching that. I watched every Raw, Nitro growing up. Like that's a soft spot for me. Like, if you tell me write a book about nWo, I'm automatically down for it.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. Because I mean, I was obviously watching wrestling at that time, and I remember like vividly when Hulk Hogan, like there aren't many things that I remember vividly from childhood, right? And I think I was like it was 96, so I was like 11 years old at that time. But I remember this vividly, and I remember also specifically the day after, because it was the summer. I was in a day camp. And I forget if I might have been like a counselor in training at a day camp, or I might have been an actual just camper. I don't even remember exactly, but I remember that day, and it was in Bayside. It was in Bayside in Queens, and I remember going to camp that day, and everyone was talking about this, and it was like there were so few things that happened back then without social media that like everyone was up on. But we came in and like the counselors were talking about it, the kids were all talking about it, like Hulk Hogan turned heel, like what, Hulk Hogan is bad now, like this is like it was an impactful moment in my childhood. And I think a lot of people feel the same way, that it was that. And that's the kind of thing that wrestling can do to someone, the kind of emotions that a wrestling can elicit that frankly, like other television shows, movies, they just can't. They just can't. For whatever reason, they just can't. Because it's live. Because like you connect with the characters on a deeper level. Because like it's like they're playing a character, but it's like no one's calling Hulk Hogan Terry Bollea on the street, right? It's Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
So it's like it's one of these things that transcends like reality and fiction, and that's why it feels so different. It feels so it may be fake, but it feels so freaking real to us, the people watching. I mean, the fans that night, right? People are pelting the ring with crap, garbage. It's like everyone in that arena at Ocean Center in Daytona Beach, they knew that what they were watching was not, it was just a show. It was a show, right? It was characters playing a role, but they were so viscerally affected by this that they were throwing garbage into the ring. Like they were angry. So for a moment, it was like they dropped all like, pretext of what wrestling was, right? That it's not, that it's choreographed, that it's scripted, and they reacted emotionally. And the same thing with the John Cena turn a few nights ago, right? When that happens, there's nothing better than pro wrestling, because you can drop all, pretext of having this fake fighting, and all of a sudden this is something that deeply affects you for whatever reason. And nothing quite gets there. Nothing quite gets there for me, and I know that it's like that for other people. Nothing quite gets to that depth of emotion that wrestling can.
Graham Matthews, take it away.
So you mentioned, Mark, you get the call to do the book back in the spring of 2021. Obviously, the book's coming out in a couple months. I thought I had remembered when you publicly announced it wasn't that long ago, unless my perception of time is just terrible. What was the time frame between finding out that you were going to do this and agreeing to do it, and then being able to publicly announce it, and then keeping that process quiet, I guess, to a small circle of people or just yourself before you can kind of let everyone know about it?
Yep. So it was kind of a long process. So the first thing that I had to do was like hire a literary agent, which I never had, never had designs on doing before. And then I had to write a proposal. So it wasn't like they just like gifted me this this book. I had to write a whole proposal. It took me like 10 months to write a proposal, which is like basically kind of like a synopsis of what the book can be and how, and who would buy it, all that stuff. It's basically a pitch. It's an extended pitch of like, hey, here's an idea. Well, whatever. One of the first things that I did is, and I think this was really important, was I reached out to Eric Bischoff. when the idea was first brought to me, and I arranged a meeting with him. He was going to be in Jacksonville for Double or Nothing that year in 2021.
Oh wow!
It was actually AEW's first show in front of a live crowd, I think, after the pandemic. It was Double or Nothing in Jacksonville, May 2021, and he was going to be there. I think he was going to be doing something like with the podcast with Conrad Thompson. So he was going to be there, and I reached out to him and I was like, can we meet? I got this offer. I want to make sure that you're on board with this as well. Like, you will talk to me, because I don't want to write this NWO book without talking to the guy who created the NWO. Right? So we sat down at a Dave and Buster's in Jacksonville, Florida.
So random.
And we talked, and he shared a lot of the vision too about what pro wrestling is, and what it can be for people, and we kind of left it at that. And then I really didn't talk to Eric again outside of a few correspondences here and there until 2023, when I had the book deal already. It was already announced, and I went up to Wyoming and I visited with him for a couple days in Cody, Wyoming, which is beautiful place, by the way, Cody. And could not be more thankful to him for giving me that that just hours and hours of his time, and also his wife Lori. Very very nice people, really, when you get to know them. But it could not have been more open to discussing everything about the NWO and wrestling with me, and so that was part of the process. And then just doing the research, I went back and I watched over 500 hours of Nitro and Thunder, which was arduous, because I was like, I'd wake up in the morning, I would over breakfast I'd put on like 90 minutes of Nitro, of WCW, and then at night another 90 minutes, and that's like almost every day for months and months and months, watching a ton of that. And then I took copious notes of all that stuff, and then from there I started out to interview people, and I interviewed almost 100 people who were there. Some people who were more like expert type of interviews. I interviewed some sociologists, I interviewed some like college professors, but who experts in culture. I interviewed an author who was an expert in cable television at that time. I interviewed a lot of people. I interviewed a presidential candidate from 2016. I interviewed a certain late night TV host who might have wrestled in 1998, and his band leader. So I tried to leave no stone unturned. Unfortunately, I did not get everyone that I wanted, but ultimately I was happy with what I was able to get in that interview process. And then once that was done, I started writing, and then I had to write I wrote over in 2023, beginning in July 2023, and it took me about 6 months to write the whole book in total. So it was a lot. It was I was trying to write 4,000 words a week, which was not plus I had a real job. I was traveling, and it was crazy. I thank my wife so much for being so supportive of me, because some people would have probably strangled me because of all the imagine sitting through WCW every day from 1990, especially in 1998. It's man.
Oh boy.
So yeah, that was it, and and now it's close, and it's I've gone through periods, honestly, where I've hated it. I've hated what I wrote, and I've gone through periods of oh, this is great, and now I'm now we're in the home stretch, and I'm pretty content and just excited for everyone to see it.
Most importantly, the big question I have for you: did you interview fake Sting?
Yeah, you're damn right I did. You're damn right. I absolutely interviewed Jeff Farmer. Yes, he was great. He actually had one of my favorite quotes in the entire book, and I won't give it away. I won't give it away, but it's a great quote.
I got a question, Randy.
Go ahead.
Obviously, during the process, since you first embarked on the journey to write the book, Scott Hall passes away in the spring of 2022. How did that affect the process? Did you get to him before that? How was that whole thing?
Okay, so it's actually crazy how that worked out. So one of the people who was most helpful to me during this whole process was Sean Waltman. Just a great guy. I mean, just an absolute just a legend. You know, really, really love Sean. You know, anytime I needed him, he picked up the phone. You know, we met. You know, we met in person in LA when I was living there. He lives there, and just a tremendous guy. And he had told me that he was going to help me get Scott for the book. And this was actually before I even got the book deal, because I wanted to, again, I wanted to get people on board before I had even, you know, gotten the deal. Because again, it's like I want to talk to these people, because it's not, it's an empty book without talking to the people who were there. So I sent in the book proposal on a Friday in March 2022, and by Monday, Scott Hall had passed away. So so it was actually like I had just sent in the proposal, so I never got a chance to talk to him. You know, I went back and I you know, watched and recorded hours of his interviews over the years. You know, with, you know, these shoot interviews with all these guys, Sean Oliver and you know, RF Video, and that's kind of a weird, and that's not really a great name to say, but you know, anything that Scott Hall said over the, you know, in a shoot interview, I watched and I recorded and I took down, and you know, some of those things are in the book as well, just some of those quotes and some of those insights from him, you know, from over the years in those shoot interviews.
Yeah, I mean, I think being serious now, I think you look at it as a tough task, because you know, nWo, we've seen a lot of documentaries, we've seen a lot of all these interviews, and it's like, all right, this story has been told by XYZ so many times. Did you go in there thinking, all right, I gotta tell this story, but try to find something that the audience does not know about already, because it's been around for 29 years, so there's been, like I mentioned, it's been out there, but what is it did you feel like I gotta, and you ain't got to say specifically, but did you end up finding something like, hey, you know what? I never knew about that.
Yes, there were a few things like that. And I think that like my goal for the book and Yadon's goal for the book was, and I mentioned this earlier, it was like we want the wrestling fan to consume this book, and I think they will, and I think they'll enjoy it. But we also want it to be just bigger than just wrestling fans, right? That's why the subtitle is, and you know, how it changed America. You know, we wanted to cross over into those you know, into that world, because so my goal was to kind of put it so, you know, there's going to be a lot of facts that y'all know, that wrestling fans already know. You know, I would say most things, you know, wrestling fans probably, especially if you're listening to 83 Weeks with, you know, with Eric, and you know, you listen to the podcast, and you know, you hear all the shoot interviews. Most of that stuff has kind of already been covered. There's not a whole lot there that hasn't been. There were a few nuggets that I found out that have not been covered as extensively in the podcast. I don't want to give too much away, but more than anything, the goal was to kind of put it in a different context than it has been put in before. And what I mean by that is, like, how did all these things like all these things that happened that we already know about, how did they affect, you know, society? How did they affect culture? What, you know, what changed? What were the effects? So it's not just kind of a retelling of what happened. It's more like what, like why and how, not just what, right? That was a major goal for me, which is why I interviewed all these sociologists and, you know, people like that, because they can put it in a different context than it has been put before. And that's one of the main goals, is to, you know, for people to see this book and put wrestling in a different context than they had before, because I think it should be discussed at a more elevated level. I mean, when Shakespeare was, you know, in Shakespeare's time period, right? His plays, his work was considered very lowbrow. It was considered trash. It was considered trash back then. It was only later on. It was considered like a soap opera. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
That sound familiar to y'all?
Yes, sir.
It was only later on when people started to speak about Shakespeare, you know, scholars and academics, which I am neither one, by the way. I'm just a fight journalist and NFL journalist. But it was only until later, when people started speaking about it differently, is when it actually became more elevated in our perception. And I think that there's a lot of that in wrestling as well. It's like when you put it in a certain context, when you kind of explain it in a certain way, which I set out to do in the book, it can be viewed in a different way, and it can be viewed as a higher level art than just, like we said before, just, you know, fake fighting. And the nWo, to me, is all about that. But I will give you one thing that I found out that no one knew before. The woman who designed the nWo logo, the one that we know so well, the one that we can probably draw with our hands with our eyes closed, right?
Yep.
No one knew who she was until I tracked her down.
Can you give away how you did that?
It's a lot of boring reporting stuff.
Okay.
A lot of
I
boring
love this
reporting
sort of
tricks.
stuff.
So how do you're saying the public never knew? Obviously, the
Look, we
company
didn't know-
knew who
yeah.
she was, but the
Not
public
not just the public. Eric Bischoff didn't know who she was.
Oh wow.
Craig Leathers didn't know who she was. No one knew who she was. So I had it when I interviewed Neil Pruitt, who you guys know as one of the voices and one of the
Randy's
really,
talking, right, Randy?
Yeah.
When I interviewed him, I interviewed here in Atlanta, which is kind of funny because I was not living in Atlanta.
That was my other question later on. Yeah, kind of tied together.
So we'll discuss that later. But when I met Neil Pruitt in Atlanta, he was like, "You need to find the person who actually sat at the computer and designed the logo, because no one has ever found her. No one has ever found who she was." And it was because at the time the Olympics were going on in Atlanta, so WCW could not use their in-house people. They were holed up at Disney MGM Studios in Orlando, in the Orlando area, right? So when the NWO first hit after Bash at the Beach, it was a scramble. Like they didn't know they were gonna have this red hot group. Like it was they were behind on everything. Really, it all worked out, But it was a very very fly by the seat of your pants type of deal. So the only thing they could do is they went over to a post-production studio on the lot of Disney MGM Studios that Disney MGM Studios kind of used to as contractors to design things in the parks, design logo, design whatever they needed, for Disney MGM Studios. And they went there one afternoon, and there was one designer working, and it was this woman, and no one knew who her name was. A few people remember what she looked like, but I was able to track her down, and it was very difficult. It was not easy. In fact, Eric Bischoff told me there's just no way you're gonna find her. Like it's not possible. She's lost the time. But I remember I found her number. And I texted her. And this is like the coldest text you're ever gonna get, right? Talk about a cold call. It's like, hi, I'm this guy and I'm writing a book. Does this logo mean anything to you? That's kind of what I sent to her.
Yeah.
And 30 minutes later, she wrote back and she said, "Yes, I designed it." And and that whole story is in the book, and it's
cool.
a crazy story. She's had no. And she's doing. She did a podcast, I think, recently because I told other people in that world about her. So they kind of picked, they kind of scooped me on it. Not really, but now she's talking. But I was the first person that ever talked to her because no one knew who she was. No one knew who she was. So that'll be in the book, and that's that's not a big part of the book, but I think for us wrestling nerds, that's kind of a cool part of history that was unfound that I tried to dig up, and I was successful.
But I think. My fault, I think is one, she should be proud because that's probably the most iconic logo when you mention wrestling and t-shirts, aside from Austin 316 and DX and Hulkamania and all that. Like the NWO logo is still probably, again, 29 years later, it's still probably the most highest selling t-shirt of all time. So that logo, it just signified the time that you were in. In 96, it's a lot of rebellious high school kids TV. It was changing of the guard, not liking your boss and all that. It was just what it represented, and whoever she is should be proud of what she has accomplished. Did she say, "Hey, Mark, how'd you find me?"
Yeah, I told her the whole story. It's a long story that required a lot of. Luckily, I have a lot of experience as a reporter, and I'm pretty good at finding people. But it was difficult. It was not easy, and I didn't think I was going to do it for a while. And you're right, Ice. She does deserve royalties. One of the first questions that she asked me, and she's like, "How many shirts did they sell?" And I was like, "You do not want to know," because she did not see a penny.
No idea.
She did not see a penny of that money, and I think I heard her audibly sigh when I said that. I was like, this shirt has sold tens of millions of dollars worth of shirts, if not more, over the years. And she was like, huh, because she saw none of that money.
You don't think that I mean, I guess not. I mean, I guess if you're removed from that world, you probably have no idea. But you don't think there was at least one instance in public where she could have seen that shirt either at that point or after the fact? Like even Disney World or something? I don't know. I just, even if you're not a fan,
she had seen the shirt a little bit, but she never felt like she just didn't know anything about wrestling. She knew nothing. She was not a wrestling fan. She was not really like in that world at all. So she never like, she said she saw it recently before the pandemic, and it was someone wearing it at a Disney resort in Florida, actually. And it turned out that it was Hulk Hogan's son wearing it, and they met. And she was like, "I'm actually the one who designed that logo," and it was it was crazy. But she thinks it's cool now because like she is not a designer now. She's in real estate, so she's not even like in that world anymore. And she told her kids, her son, that this logo that her son knew what the logo, didn't know what it was, but have seen the logo before, right? And her son knew nothing about her past life as like a designer, and she thought it was cool that like Kevin Durant. I told her no, she didn't even know that like Kevin Durant wore it, Kylie Jenner wore it, and she had no idea. And she told her son, and he thought he got a kick out of it.
Wow,
that's crazy. Is she like older now? I mean, like, was she young when she designed?
She's not. She was like 26 years old when she did. 26, 27 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, she's still on, obviously.
So you have the person who made the logo.
Yes.
You have the person, the iconic voice, nWo Pruitt.
Yes.
Do we know who made the theme song nWo? Because that's very iconic as well.
Yeah. It's so it was literally just a generic song on in the Turner Music Library that they picked out. They only found out later on that it was like a song called Rock. It was like a song called Rock House. And I apologize. I don't have the actual the artist name right now off the top of my head. It's in the book. But they had no idea at the time that's what it was. It was literally just like a file. And nWo Pruitt remembered the actual like name of the file on a computer, and and I had that in the book as well. Like he remembered the exact like name. It was like DSC something dot whatever, and that's what they used, not knowing what it was. But basically, what it was is kind of like a mashup of like several different Jimi Hendrix songs put together into like a remix, and that's really what it, that's they thought that kind of like gave the vibe of the group, and that's what got chosen. Yeah, a lot of the stuff was like not like super well thought out, planned out, polished and like precise. A lot of it was like, let's just throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. And quite a bit stuck.
G.
I mean, I guess going back to what we had mentioned briefly before, did helping, moving to Atlanta for the Falcons, obviously, I imagine that would help your process and talking to some of these people that might still be based out of Atlanta. Did that help your process at all or no?
By the time I moved here last year, the interviews were pretty much done. I was in the manuscript was already in actually, because I sent it in, the first one December 2023, and now I've just been doing like revisions and edits and stuff. So it was already kind of done. But I did come here for a week before I knew that I'd move here. I came here for a week in 2022. And I did a bunch of interviews with people who were still here, and Pruitt being one of them. Alan Sharp, who was the great PR director of WCW back then. I interviewed him, while I was here. Just a lot of people that I spoke to, behind the scenes people who helped me out just a ton. I mean, producers and, associate producers and, sound people and production people and, editors, like, guys that people have never heard of, like a Jason Douglas, who was, instrumental working with like nWo Pruitt back then on stuff. And it was fun, trying to find, and most of the time people ask me, how'd you find me? And I said, that's what I do. I'm a reporter. That's kind of what I do.
Before I move into the Cena and it's very weird timing that nWo, your book is coming out in June, 1 year away from the 30th anniversary. It's just amazing how it's been almost 30 years since they've formed. It's like, one, I think, damn, I'm getting old. Two, you see the difference of production value, pro wrestling from 96 until 2025. And even like you see the pro athletes nowadays and culture is like they are showing I'm a fan of wrestling. You see like Wale and Tyrese Halliburton and Jalen Brunson, like everybody's like a big wrestling fan. Does that go back to nWo? Maybe or maybe not, but it's still we are in a happy place that wrestling is more mainstream, it's more accepted, it's cool now, and I think the NWO plays a big major part in it because you mentioned, they were on Jay Leno, Dennis Rodman. Hold up, did you get Rodman?
I wish I had. I tried. I tracked him down to one of Conrad Thompson's Starcast conventions, and I tried, and no dice on that one. But I did speak to his agent, who was also Karl Malone's agent, and he gave me a ton of details and a lot of stuff that people don't know. And he was great. He was really great. Yeah, I don't want to give too much away.
No, you good.
I don't want to give too much away, but there were some interesting things in there. But as far as wrestling, wrestling was really not cool until the NWO. It was like maybe it was cool in a little bit in the 80s in a different way, right? With Hulk Hogan at his height and like Macho Man. But the NWO really made it cool to an urban audience, really, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, and I go into this a lot in the book, they took so much from rap, from hip hop, from, West Coast, hip hop and rap and, NWA and West Side Connection and, Tupac with the bandanas around, the front of their head. And, they really had to get Hulk Hogan, up to speed on this stuff because he was not up to speed on the hip hop scene at that time. And hip hop was so big back then. And like, it was like, they were white guys, they were white dudes, but Kevin Nash has even said in interviews, like, we were trying to at least, we couldn't be black, but we could at least kind of show black culture a little bit. Maybe it was a little bit of a cultural appropriation, who knows, what, how people feel about it. But, I feel like they were at least able to tap into a little bit of that, like that market where, it just became cooler. And those guys were just cool. There's nothing like coolness is kind of like one of those nebulous concepts, right? Like, what does that even mean? But like, those guys were just freaking cool. When they're on the screen, they pop off the screen. You want to hear what they have to say. You want to hear what they do. There's that GIF that I've posted so many times on X, on Twitter, Scott Hall. He gets hit with. He gets hit with a full soda cup of God knows what, right? And does not even, just gets hit, pop right in the head. Does not even flinch, but just moves forward and smiles and slicks his hair back. I was like, no one has ever been cooler on the face of the planet than Scott Hall was at that very moment in time. I mean, goodness gracious. So like, what those guys, just kind of exuded it, and they were given the freedom to be that in WCW, whereas maybe they were not in the past. I interviewed Jerry Briscoe for the book, and he was great. And he said, like, at the time when Hall and Nash left, the people in the higher ups in WWF felt like that Scott Hall was a much bigger loss than Kevin Nash. They kind of felt like they were okay with Kevin Nash walking out, and that wasn't going to be a huge blow to the company. But once he got to WCW and they kind of let him be Kevin Nash rather than kind of pigeonholing him as like Diesel, he really blossomed into, the charismatic, superstar that he ended up being. So that was actually really big for his career to kind of have that freedom, because there was a lot of freedom in WCW, right? WWF was very scripted, very structured, and Hall and Nash kind of just went out in WCW and did whatever the hell they wanted in many cases, and it worked.
I gotta get this book, man. It sounds incredibly researched.
Pre-order right now on Amazon, my man.
That's right.
Right now.
So let's get to Cena. Cena has been a heel for 5 days. But a lot of people are which is a good convo to have, comparing it to Hogan 96. And, Cena being the last really long enough babyface to make that turn. He said he's retiring in December. We don't know if this is going to prolong it or not, but I see you've done a couple of interviews already with our boy Ariel, which I want to thank you, because I wouldn't have the intro with me and Ariel does not happen without you. So I want to say that publicly. Like me and Ariel like this now, so we cool.
That's your boy.
That's my boy. Nick Games and big Knicks fan. So I see him all the time. So compare the Cena heel turn to Hogan, because I think you said it's bigger than the Hogan heel turn. Am I right?
Yeah, I think it's bigger. But let me explain what I mean by that.
Go ahead.
It's bigger in the sense that The Rock is a much bigger name than Hulk Hogan was in 1996, right? Than Kevin Nash was, that Scott Hall was. John Cena is a bigger name than either of these three gentlemen, right? That are to my left on the book cover, and even Travis Scott, probably a bigger name, especially among Gen Z and the younger demographic, than any of these guys. So you got really like three guys who are almost A-list celebrities, who would not be, out of character, like at the Oscars or at, you know what I mean? Like these guys run with a much bigger mainstream crowd than Hall and Nash did. Certainly Hogan was a big star and he was the household name, but he was never in the kind of box office movies that The Rock has been in, right? The Rock is the highest paid actor in Hollywood, and Hulk Hogan was never that. So from that perspective, I feel like these guys are much more household names than Hogan, Hall, and Nash were in '96. So what I'm saying is that angle with Cena turning heel is bigger in a vacuum than Hulk Hogan turning heel in '96. And the one thing that I didn't really get to say on Ariel's show is that, and I did kind of go into it a little bit, is like, you don't know what this turns into. The Hogan turn in '96 turned into the biggest boom period in our lifetimes in professional wrestling. And that's hard to replicate. So it's hard to get bigger than that. But I'm just saying, I'm just taking this angle right here. We don't know what happens next. Who knows? Maybe this turns into a massive, hot period for wrestling. It's already hot, right? It's already hot to a degree. But maybe it gets even bigger from here. Maybe it gets more mainstream. It's on Netflix. Who knows? I mean, anything could happen from here. But I'm just saying that, the angle in a vacuum was bigger. We don't know what happens next, and we can't possibly predict it, but I just think that this one was bigger. And I'll also say that, kind of to the contrary of everything that I just said, I think it's bigger, but because there's so many more things in the world now, in entertainment and social media. I mean, we have like a million different. I'm talking to you on a phone. I was talking to you on a laptop. Like, those things didn't even exist in '96. It's like, so there's so many things that can distract us now. So in the greater entertainment world and greater social media, pop culture world, it probably, even though it's bigger, it's still not, it doesn't come close to the kind of relative significance that the Hulk Hogan heel turn was, which was a much smaller world where, it was really just cable TV, and like the radio, like, you weren't logging on.
The hotline. The hotline.
The hotline. I mean, like, I think, I forget if I even had the internet. I probably had like 56K maybe at that time when I was 11 years old. It's like, so to that degree, it was kind of a bigger fish in a big fish in a smaller pond. This is a big fish in an enormous pond.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, Hulk Hogan turns heel, and everyone's talking about it. It went viral before viral was even a thing, right? There was no such thing as viral at that time in '96, and now things go viral, and you forget about them, in 2 days. So it's hard to compare. But I do think that in a vacuum, if you look at like everyone that, I mean, MLB was like putting this on Instagram, like, turning, like, ESPN was all over it, all over ESPN social channels. I mean, it was everywhere. But again, there's also so many things out there. The news cycle moves real fast in 2025. But that's kind of my contextual take on that.
Hey, Mark, Graham won't know about AOL and Windows 95.
Man, that was a struggle. You had to got like the disc in the mail. Like, they would be sending you discs, like free trials. I mean,
Remember
it was like chaos.
No,
chaos,
old, bro. Gee, go ahead.
First of all, Randy, I still use AOL. You send the StreamYard link every week to an AOL account. First of all, I have other AOL, I have other Gmail or whatever emails. But anyway, just want to mention that. Anyway, so as far as like this, you mentioned it's bigger, which I completely agree with. Do you think, and we're only 5 days out, obviously.
Yeah.
Do you think it will have the same long-standing success? Like, because there's been so much talk, I think, because of the comparisons to the nWo, myself included too. Like, I'm not excluding myself from this. As far as conversation, like, there should be a third guy. I know Travis Scott was literally there, so he's technically the third guy, but we're talking like CM Punk being added or Randy Orton or something like that, which would be honestly like in the 30 years since the initial nWo, I mean, the pure star power alone, this is probably bigger than that. I mean, like for the reasons that you mentioned,
Right.
Mark, like all these people being bigger stars than Hall and Nash were in '96. If they were to add like someone like a third man, or even if they just keep it to Rock and Cena, does it have the same longevity? I mean, this really elevated wrestling back in '96. Wrestling is such at a place now where how much more can it be elevated? I don't know. I just want to get your thoughts on that.
It's so hard to say because it really does matter a lot what they do next. You know,
Absolutely,
the next step in this story is of vital importance.
Yeah.
And you know, one thing that I noticed that I really liked in WCW right after the NWO is that the next Nitro, it was like they interviewed like every mid card person about, oh, what do you think about Hulk Hogan's heel turn? And like it was like it became it was like they were saying it right away. Hey, this is the biggest deal in the world right now. They were displaying it as this is like everyone is talking about this. Everyone on our roster is kind of like weighing in on what this means, and that was not something that was ever done before, right? Because storylines were kind of like in their own vacuums, you know, up and down the card, and they didn't really, you know, you didn't get, you know, they had like Hacksaw Jim Duggan talking about Hulk Hogan, Rey Mysterio on the next Nitro talking about Hulk Hogan, you know, and he was like a lower mid carder at that time, right, in WCW. I think that you have to keep it big. And also, I also kind of want to shout out to the commentary team too, like the Tony Schiavone's of the world and the Mike Tenay's and Bobby Heenan's, because the way that they call the NWO made it feel bigger, you know, made it feel like this is imminent disaster. This is imminent, you know, collapse, you know, this takeover. And like, they really framed it in a perfect way. And it all goes hand in hand with wrestling. So the next steps for this group are so incredibly important. And if you do add a third member, you have to be extremely judicious about who you decide to make that third member. And, you know, it's hard to get, you know, I think the Conan, when I interviewed him, he said like that Hall and Nash with Hogan it was perfect casting, and it really, really was. It was because it took a guy that was an established superstar in Hulk Hogan, the face of the sports entertainment, you know, of the industry at that time, with two guys who were still kind of on their way up in a sense, like they were stars, but they were not household names, and they had that cool factor about them. So you need to, again, you know, you need to kind of do something that's maybe a little bit, because Hall and Nash were different than Hogan, and there was a little bit of a clash of styles in that way, but they were kind of they were the people that kind of preserved that cool factor, because there's no NWO doesn't get as big without Hall and Nash because of how cool they were, but it also doesn't get as big without Hulk Hogan because of what he already meant to the business and to the mainstream. And they need to kind of keep that in mind when if they do add a third member, or if they continue and how they continue with this story.
So I assume new music for John Cena, new attitude, new wardrobe attire.
Yes.
And I think WrestleMania 41 main event, it's a lot going on, because I think even like a few days ago, Ric Flair is like, you know, you're not going to win the 17th. You know, he's talking shit already, which is cool. I think he should have a role in this. Now, am I saying get in the ring? No, but I think the story has to be
I hope
there.
not.
No, definitely not. But I think the story has to be known. Hey, Ric Flair is right there. Tonight might be the night I break the record. Is he in attendance and all that? But my question to you is, do you have Cena walking out of WrestleMania as a new champion? And if so, how long do you have him as champion for?
Oh yeah, he has to win. He has to win. No. I mean, you can't do this turn and not have him win. You just can't. You can't do that. I mean,
it's like Hogan losing to the Giant like the next month. Yeah.
Right. Hollywood Hogan, you know, the next pay-per-view, he won the title. And that's just what you have to do. You know, everything loses steam if you don't have him win. And it's just a much better story for the long term with Cody Rhodes giving chase to Cena and to this group, you know, whatever you want to call it. You know, the Hollywood Illuminati, or whatever, you know, whatever the heck you wanna say. So that's where the money is in this. The money is Cena as like this, you know, TKO board sponsored champion, you know, your corporate champion, and you know, Cody giving chase, and that's really what I think it has to be. And I don't think it works quite to the same effect if it doesn't. And then eventually Cody gets the title back, and then Cody is a made man, because he conquered Roman Reigns. He beat Cena to win the title, and all of a sudden now he's going to be talked about in the same, with the same reverence as guys like that, with the Cenas and the Stone Colds and the Hulk Hogan's maybe even. I think this is only going to raise Cody's profile. Bro got hit in the head by Travis Scott already. Dude is getting I think that has to be the path, I believe, and it's hard to say where they go from here, but you have to trust them. You have to trust them because 2 years in a row, The Rock comes back and people were like, "Oh, The Rock's coming back. They're changing everything for Dwayne." Blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
Both times it's better. It's better. Both times it got better.
Yeah.
Say what you will. I think that Triple H's booking has been terrific as a whole. But say what you will, WrestleMania feels a lot bigger when The Rock is involved, and it certainly seems a lot bigger now that John Cena has turned on Cody with The Rock, in his corner.
That's a fact. G?
You think the biggest difference being as well between the nWo, Hogan turn and the Cena turn? We know this is Cena's last year, unless he comes out in a couple of weeks and says, "I lied and I'm actually not retiring," which I doubt is the case.
Which will be a heel move.
That would be a massive heel move. I'm not saying it's impossible. It could certainly happen. I just don't expect it. Do you think it almost limits? I mean, this is never going to be the nWo. We know that. Like, it's literally bigger, like we talked about, but I don't think it'll have change the industry the same way that nWo, did one in whatever that beat over WWF at the time, whatever. Do you think the fact that Cena is retiring and it's only limited? I mean, a lot of people are already saying he might turn back babyface by Mania, which I think would be incredibly premature. Maybe SummerSlam. End of the year, maybe. Hopefully, obviously, I think at the end of the year he retires as a babyface. But do you think the fact he's retiring kind of limits the success that this new stable could have?
Yeah, sort of. It could certainly, because I'm not sure if they're thinking about this as like a long-term stable more than just kind of a device for WrestleMania and beyond. Just for 2025, right? This is going to be the story for 2025, and then Cody gets the title back, and then maybe it's Cody Roman again in 2026 at WrestleMania, or maybe it's The Rock versus Roman finally in 2026. Who knows? The cool thing is that they have so many things that they can do because they have built everything and everyone in such a way where the stories intertwine and everything kind of makes sense no matter what direction they go in, and that is the mark of good booking, right? Because when you have stories and characters that are over and that have all kind of interacted with each other to some degree, it's almost like you can go in several different directions and neither of them or any of them are bad, right? So whatever happens from here, it is still probably going to be good. It may not be what we're fantasy booking in our heads, sitting here on a Thursday afternoon, but I think it does limit it to an extent, but I think that's okay. I mean, the nWo went on way too long. It went on forever. And I get it because business was so good, and there is that. Why try to change something that's working? Why try to end the nWo when it's still making you an insane amount of money? They're beating WWF. They're making more money. WCW was never profitable before, and now they're making money hand over fist. The t-shirts are selling like crazy. Why would you end that? But it just, at some point you do have to end it, right? And build new stars. And that's not something that they were able to do. And there was a lot of political stuff. I get into all that in the book. But here it's like, I feel like this is kind of more of a story arc than a long-term story, storyline that goes for years and years.
Yeah, just because I think of Hogan, it not elevated Hogan, obviously it was Hulk Hogan, but it extended his career at least by 6 to 8 years. I mean, through at least 02, 03, he was a main eventer, which he probably wouldn't have been if he didn't turn heel. So
100%, and that was I don't think I understand all the criticism of Hulk Hogan. I understand all the criticism of Hulk Hogan, and I don't really disagree with any of it. But you can't tell me that it's not impressive that a guy can have a run as a babyface, as the face of the industry for as long as he did, and be so good at that and make a ton of money for everyone, including himself, and then turn heel and completely reinvent himself, and then be the face of the group that then redefined the industry again a decade later. You know, I mean, you can't tell me that's not impressive. Very few people, if anyone, has been able to do that as a babyface and a heel, kind of redefining. I mean, he headlined WrestleMania as a babyface, and then he started the boom period in the '90s as a heel. I mean, that is unheard of, and I think that he deserves a lot of credit for that, despite the criticism, the very valid criticism. I might add.
Facts. I agree. So what? We are a month and a half away from WrestleMania, 2-night WrestleManias. Are you planning to be in Vegas, Mark, for anything?
I will be in Las Vegas. Viva Las Vegas, the city that I've been to all too many times
and
for UFC fights.
You know who lives in Las Vegas?
I know a lot of people who live in Las Vegas.
Hall of Famer Stone Cold Steve Austin, and just 2 hours.
He lives in California.
Hold up.
I think he used to live in California. I think he lives in Nevada now. I think
he lives in Nevada. Okay.
Yeah.
So there you
go. So 2 hours ago, I think he's doing some racing stuff. And the questions asked, will you be in Vegas for WrestleMania? And I know last year he was on Adrian Hernandez's podcast, and he mentioned like, hey, if Cody needs an extra hand,
right,
I'll be around. You know what I'm saying? Like now that is being floated out. Could Stone Cold, because I think we all felt that in last year's main event, the Undertaker spot was supposed to be for Stone Cold.
Yeah.
And now you're going back to the well. Could we see Stone Cold come out? And if so, I think if you pull that card,
I would love.
Does that make Cody walking out Mania again with the championship if you bring in Stone Cold to help him?
Maybe. I mean, I still don't think that's the right move. I still think it should be Cena winning, but yeah, certainly Stone Cold can be a part of it to some degree. The thing with Stone Cold is like, last year I guess they could not come to a deal with him. And I don't necessarily know if that means money. I think that Stone Cold, historically, since he's retired as a full-time wrestler, he's been very particular about the creative of what he's going to come and do. So I don't even think it's just a money situation with him. I think it's like he needs to really believe in the creative. And I'm not sure if he really believed in the creative as like Stone Cold coming out in that role, because he's been very protective of his character and Stone Cold Steve Austin forever. I mean, even in retirement, right? He's still very protective of his character and what he does and what he doesn't do. And I respect that a lot. And I think that's, more people should be like that to a degree. So I think that they can come up with a great creative idea for him to do that. Great. But if not, I doubt he would do it. They have all the money, and I mean, TKO is just like printing money with the UFC and WWE, and now they're doing this boxing thing. It's like they have so much money. They can absolutely if they want Stone Cold from a monetary standpoint, they can get him. But can they bring him the creative that he wants? I don't know if that's the case.
I mean, but even with the people of like Triple H and The Rock being involved, you would think like Stone Cold would be more like, obviously Vince is no longer around with the company, but now if Hunter's there, The Rock has a major role now. I think I think Stone Cold will be like, I will maybe trust your judgment more than what it was before. So that's all I can say.
It's hard to say because like I feel like he trusts himself. I feel like he trusts himself. He trusts.
He don't trust anybody.
He's DTA.
That's right.
I think that he has an incredible mind for professional wrestling, and I think that he knows what works and what doesn't work extremely well. And it doesn't matter who's delivering the message, whether it's The Rock or Vince McMahon or Triple H. I think that he's going to decide based on his gut, and I think that that's kind of and that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so.
That's right. G, what you got?
No, I think that's really about it. I mean, we'll see about Stone Cold Mania this year. I think if he didn't come out last year to do a cameo just to stun Rock, which would have been incredible. If he wasn't on board with that, I mean, what would be any different about this? You know what I mean? Like if he comes out and stuns Rock this year, then I don't know why he turned down last year. The only thing I can think of is that, to Randy's point, he's from this area of Nevada, California. He has said before he doesn't like traveling at this point.
Right.
So he wouldn't have to go far to Mania. So maybe that's the only difference, to be honest with you. If he does come out, you could work out a scenario where Rock comes out to help Cena. So Stone Cold stops Rock, but then maybe a third man, go back to talk about what we were talking about before, helps Cena win. And then I don't know if Stone Cold would be happy about helping Cody and then it doesn't end up making a difference. So I don't know, but I mean, you could navigate those waters if you wanted to. So it's not an exact repeat of last year, but I don't know.
So Mark, before I let you go, think me and Graham have what we feel is the WrestleMania card to a degree. So we'll play around with the card for a little bit.
Okay.
Main event night 2 will be John Cena, Cody Rhodes, right?
No doubt.
Main event night 1 will be
whatever Roman Reigns, CM Punk, and Seth Rollins end up doing, probably.
And okay, I'll play advocate. Just a triple threat match. There's no stakes, no stipulation. There's no just a regular triple threat. You think that's gonna main event WrestleMania, or you think something should be added to that?
No, that's gonna whatever those 3 guys end up doing, whatever Roman Reigns ends up doing, to put it more specifically, that's the main event of night 1.
Okay. Jey Uso, Gunther. Who you got?
Who's gonna win?
Yeah.
Jey Uso.
New world champion.
Yeet.
Charlotte, Tiffany Stratton.
I would hope that Charlotte puts Tiffy over. But maybe again the idea of the chase is there, and Charlotte wins if people get pissed off and they want Tiffany to win it back, and that gets her more over as a babyface. I don't think she's extremely over as a babyface right now. A little bit. I think people are still a little bit confused by her character.
Yeah.
Sorry, I dropped my
What do you make of this whole obviously shocking on Raw to see Rhea lose the women's championship to Io Sky. As of right now, it's Io and Bianca at Mania, but I think that would be a triple threat to include Rhea. What do you make about that? And also the whole fiasco regarding Naomi, Jade, and Bianca. Who do you think's involved, and who's the culprit?
I do think that it'll be a triple threat ultimately. And I do think that I feel like Bianca was in on that with Naomi. Okay. I feel like she was in on it. I don't think a triple threat with 3 baby faces is really a great idea. Although I guess Seth Rollins, CM Punk, and Roman Reigns is kind of a triple threat with 3 baby faces, sort of. But you don't want to do that twice.
Yeah, 2 triple threats. Yeah, no thanks. I don't know.
I think I'll put it this way. I think there's going to be more to come that we're not seeing yet with this the story with the women, with Bianca and Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. I think there's going to be more than meets the eye.
What else could be? Maybe Jacob and Solo at Mania. Do you think that would be happening?
I'd be down with that. I do feel like they need kind of a way to get Jacob Fatu to a higher position on the card. You know, I think that I was disappointed that he kind of went back to the Braun Strowman, after he destroyed him on Saturday night's main event. It's like I thought that was done. That was in the past, but then Braun Strowman eliminates him from the Rumble and everything. I mean, I think that he's over. He is so over, and he's so good, and he can cut a promo, and he can work a freaking good match, and he looks like $1 million. I mean, he looks like a crazed person. Dude is great. I think it's cool because I watched him for so many years, like in GCW and MLW, and on the Indies on the West Coast, which he did a lot of. Right, I saw that guy a lot. And everyone knew that he was dope, but it was just a matter of like, will WWE hire him because of all of his like legal issues in the past? And they finally did, and they're giving him the ball to a degree. But I think that he's, I think he could be a main event level talent.
What else? Real quick. Maybe I had it in my head. KO and Randy Orton.
Yeah, KO and Randy Orton. Yeah, for sure. That's a match. Maybe with the stipulation. That's gotta be the one. Yeah. I don't know what Sami Zayn does. I have no idea right now what Sami Zayn does, which sucks because he's been great.
I'd like to see Sammy hunt down Jey Uso for the heavyweight championship at some point. There's a story behind at the Mania. At the Mania, not at Mania.
I'd keep him babyface.
Yeah. I'm not saying turn him heel. I'm saying he can go after the title.
Oh, you forgot about Randy, Damian, and Drew as well. That looks to be the plan for Mania.
You
like that, Mark? Damian and Drew?
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I don't feel super strongly about that one. The WWE is in a position where they have too many over stars for the available matches that are there for WrestleMania, and I would put Drew McIntyre, right up there as one of the over stars. And I wish that he was in something else, but it's like you just can't. Like, you have Seth Rollins and CM Punk and Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes and John Cena and The Rock's around. And it's like, unfortunately, Drew kind of gets the short end of the stick. a little bit. But at least there's a story there with Damian Priest with last year, the cash in and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I like Damian Priest. I think he's solid, and they obviously trust him. I would like to see Bad Bunny involved. Can we get Bad Bunny? Can we get Benito back in there?
Yeah, just have him against Travis Scott.
Maybe.
That would be a terrible match.
I heard Travis,
and not because of Bad Bunny.
Yeah,
I heard Travis has been like a little working out, getting the gym, and just getting the ropes.
That's what Fightful reported. Yeah, that he's gonna find out real quick that wrestling it may be fake, but it's pretty freaking hard to do.
Yeah.
What else? Logan, AJ Styles. You think?
Maybe. I guess. I mean, I thought they were gonna do Logan and Braun Breaker because they were kind of teasing that a little bit on Raw. I'm sorry. AJ Styles and Braun Breaker. They were
or a multi-man match or something, but
could be a multi-man match. That might be. But they're trying to push Logan Paul as like a bigger star.
Yeah, he wouldn't. Yeah,
right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could be that.
Well, last question, because I throw a little AEW in there for Mark. I think Ray Phoenix is coming soon to the company and probably join his boy Penta. So we might see the Lucha Brothers.
His brother.
Not
his boy. Yeah, his brother.
That's his guy. You might get the Lucha Brothers in the company now. So what do you make about that?
I mean, I think both guys are great. I really want them to continue pushing Penta as a single star. That's what I really want, because I think that AEW failed to do that, and we saw in Lucha Underground what he can do as a single star. And the dude he just oozes charisma. He's got so much charisma. He's a fun guy to watch in the ring, and the guy looks friggin' awesome. I mean, you can put that guy in posters. Like I thought it was a missed opportunity in AEW to not push him as like a singles heel main event guy, and I think that he could be heading somewhere in that direction in WWE if they give him the ball. And then Phoenix is so good. I mean, he's one of the best in-ring wrestlers in the world when he's healthy. But I just don't. I'd like to keep them away from each other for a little bit. If that makes sense. Like I wouldn't even mind like Phoenix, and Phoenix is kind of kind of. I don't even want to say he's over this because NXT is a quality product, but I wouldn't mind seeing him do some stuff in NXT in the beginning and then have Penta kind of do his thing, kind of the way that Julia and Stephanie, Bacher are doing their thing right now, because they're so good. I mean, they're good. They're really, really freaking good. And these are all, we were a few years ago when I was doing the show regularly with you guys, these are all people that were like on the independents or in AEW, and I was trying to tell you, Randy, that these people are freaking great. And now that they're in WWE, now they're great. But back then it was just more yelling at a cloud, And it's like Julia is like, I saw her wrestle in Japan at Sumo Hall, and this woman is like unbelievable. Stephanie Bacher is like, I saw her wrestle at Arena Mexico. And she is fantastic. She's so good. And I'm just happy to see that, even like a guy like Jacob Fatu that we mentioned, guy that I saw on the indies. Go support your local independent wrestling shows, because that is where the stars of the future were. I went to my first show in Atlanta a few weeks ago, and it was fantastic. It was so freaking good. I was so and I'm a guy that, went to PWG all the time in LA, and PWG was like the gold standard for in-ring, wrestling for a long time. But man, these young guys and girls in Atlanta were working so hard. Most of them are from AR Fox's school. AR Fox is a fantastic wrestler, fantastic trainer, obviously, because a lot of these wrestlers, Austin Theory was one of them who came out of that school. I am so impressed, and I can't wait to go to another one here soon, because there's a really, really growing independent scene here in Atlanta, and I'm pretty stoked about it.
Nice. Are you going as a fan for WrestleMania weekend, or are you doing some work out there?
I'm trying to sell some books. I'm trying to sell some pre-orders. And then I don't have anything. I don't have anything firmly planned right now. I'm going with my wife and my dear friends Esther Lynn and Casey Leiden. For MMAfighting.com fans, they know them as nice. Video and photographer. So I'll probably go to Bloodsport. Josh Barnett is a guy that I know pretty well, that I've known for a long time, and that looks like a really good card. And then we'll go from there. I'll try to find my way into WrestleMania somehow.
Hey man, let me know, because I'm trying to get out there for the weekend.
Yeah,
do some content with my boy Arden. Still trying to figure some things out. But if all goes well, I should be there for the weekend. You got Wildmania. They got a whole bunch of different things going on. Going to actual WrestleMania, it's 0% right now, but you never know. Hopefully someone will hook me up. But listen, man, always a pleasure talking to you, man. We love you. We're proud of you. We appreciate you. Let me get this right. Marc Raimondi, the new author of Say Hello to the Bad Guys, How Professional Wrestling's New World Order Changed America.
There it is.
Look at that.
And I will reach out to you guys. I'll make sure that you guys get copies of the book in advance.
Thanks, boss.
You can check it out. I'll reach out for your addresses and whatnot.
Cool.
Can you sign it for me, Mark, please?
Pay extra for that one, Randy.
We'll see. We'll see about that.
Wow.
It might bring down the value of the book. It might bring down the value of the paper.
Nah, just like Randy. Thank you for being a big fan. Marc Raimondi, something.
Thanks for letting me sweat my what's off at Hoops in the Sun for all those weekends and burn myself.
Listen, man,
like 25 years old.
Listen, man, we got 25th this summer, 25th anniversary.
Wow, that's crazy.
You was there in 07. That was the 7th year, and I don't think you've been there since. I know you've just been a busy guy, but 25 years. If you're around in New York this summer, we'd love for you to come by.
The last time I was there was probably around like 2011, 2010, 2011, 2012, something like that.
Damn,
I think, right?
Years. And it looks a lot different.
It is, yeah. It doesn't feel like that.
Nah, man. Listen, time
goes
by.
Have you ever considered doing a wrestling show from Orchard Beach, the Riviera, the Bronx Riviera?
You mean like at the court or like on the sand?
Either one. Set up get some people to set up a ring. That would be sick. Like an independent show.
I've thought about something
because y'all got lights now, right?
I want to get lights in place.
Okay.
Yeah, the lights out there is not really good. Plus, you got wildlife and all that, so it's you do wrestling, you grab it. Oh shit, a deer! Oh.
I mean, I went to wrestling in a marijuana drink like factory in Atlanta. So it's like you can do wrestling anywhere. Bash to the Beach was on the beach many times.
Daytona,
Beach.
That was
Daytona.
Fire.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, like Kevin Garnett said, anything is possible. We'll see what can happen. There's a lot of meetings, Parks Department, so it's not like, hey, I want to bring in this ring and these people. Yeah, come on in. Like, nah, it's not that. Listen, I would love to, but I would love to see you out there this summer. If you're here, if you're here between June and August on the weekends, let us know. Pull up. We'd love to see you.
Sounds good.
It's been a long time. Proud of you, man. We love you. Don't log off just yet. You know how StreamYard goes. But G, any final words for Mark before he heads out?
If it's my choice, I won't log off. I'm not sure if it's my choice though. They might just log me off.
Yeah, no, this is great, man. Looking forward to reading the book. Thanks for taking the time as always. And this was fun getting the gang back together, the original nWo of 2 out of 3 Falls. So thanks, man. We'll catch you down the road.
That's right.
Thank you guys.
Oh, matter of fact, are you planning to do like any book signings or just to put online and let people buy it?
No, I mean maybe it's still very. I'm still in those discussions about possible events, but yeah, it's possible we might do something in LA, New York.
Nice.
If I can get there for SummerSlam weekend, that's what I'm hoping. But it might be training camp. That might be hard, so I don't know yet.
Come on, Mark. We want SummerSlam. We want training camp.
I feel like the book will have some kind of a presence at WrestleCon during, or at least something during WrestleMania, SummerSlam weekend. But it may not be me physically there. It might be someone from Simon & Schuster, kind of selling books or whatever.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, I'd love to come to New York and do some stuff out there though.
Let me know, man. Hit me up. Graham Matthews, you're on Twitter at X at WrestleRant for Bleacher Report and Fansided DDT. Marc Raimondi is at Marc Raimondi on Twitter. X, Randy J. Cruz, RENDY, letter J, CRUZ. Find the podcast on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, also on Amazon Music. Go to youtube.com/Cruise Control Podcast. Go ahead, download, rate, comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Show some love and support for your boys on the program. Again, Graham Matthews, Randy Cruz, and our good friend Marc Raimondi. See you guys soon.